You know that popular phrase, don't you? Love yourself, and the whole world will love you. Acupressors fear. Never compromise for anyone. Right now, this message is being shouted from every rooftop. It's on Instagram, TikTok, in best-selling books. Bloggers with perfect skin, psychologists, life coaches with dazzling smiles, they all teach us to be queens. They tell us to defend our boundaries, to demand the best, and to live exclusively for ourselves. They tell us that compromise is weakness. They tell us that we don't owe anyone anything. I lived by these rules for 45 years. I wasn't just a follower of this philosophy, its living embodiment. I was the poster child for this modern brand of self-love. And do you know where it led me? To success? To happiness? To a crowd of adoring fans? No. It led to a specific moment on my birthday, where I found myself howling from loneliness in an empty apartment, clutching a glass of wine, while women my age were babysitting their grandchildren and setting large tables for their families. My name is Evelyn. I am 60 years old, and I want to tell you the things that successful, well-groomed women in expensive suits usually keep silent about. I want to tell you how I, with my own hands, brick by brick, built a wall that separated me from happiness. I want to tell you how I stole half my life from myself. It all started, of course, in childhood. We all come from there, and my problems took root in the very soil that my parents fertilized so diligently. I was an only child, a late, long-awaited, prayed-for flower. My mother was already over 35, my father pushing 40. They looked at me not as a child who needed to be raised and prepared for the world, but as a deity that needed to be worshipped. For my parents, the word no did not exist. It was forbidden. If Evelyn wanted a new doll, Dad would run to the store, even if he only had pennies left until payday. If Evelyn didn't want to eat her soup, Mom would be cooking pancakes at 10 o'clock at night, just so the child wouldn't go hungry. If Evelyn broke a vase, it was the vase's fault, the cat's fault, the wind's fault, but never Evelyn's. I grew up with the firm, concrete conviction that I was the center of the universe. I was the sun, around which all other planets must revolve. Mom, Dad, Grandma, and eventually, the rest of the world. My parents thought this was love. They thought that by protecting me from the slightest upset, they were making me happy. But in reality, they were committing a crime against my future. They created an artificial world for me, a greenhouse where it was always 75 degrees, there was no wind, and the sun always shone. I grew up to be an absolute egoist, but the scariest part was, I didn't understand it. I sincerely believed that this was simply how the world worked. I called my capricious temper having a strong character. I called my inability to listen to others being principled. I remember an incident in school. A teacher gave me a reprimand, quite a fair one. I came home in tears. What did my parents do? Did they explain to me that I was wrong? No. My father went to the school and caused a scandal. He demanded the teacher be fired for traumatizing the child's psyche. I stood nearby and triumphed. I learned the lesson well. I am always right, and if someone disagrees, they are an enemy to be destroyed. By the time I was 20, I had turned into a beautiful, bright, but absolutely insufferable young woman. My main principle in life was, I am who I am. If you don't like it, goodbye, the door is there. I said this with pride. I boasted about the fact that I didn't take other people's opinions into account. It seemed to me that adapting to others was the lot of the weak, the lot of gray mice. Listen to someone else? Why? After all, there is only my opinion, and it is correct by definition. I was Evelyn, the center of the world. Men? Oh, there were many. I was striking. They flocked to me like moths to a bright flame. Flowers, restaurants, compliments. I liked this worship, but no one stayed for long. Because relationships are not just holidays and sex. Relationships are work. They are everyday life. It is the ability to listen when your partner is tired. It is the ability to keep your mouth shut when you want to bite. It is compromise. And I didn't know what compromise was. That word didn't exist in my dictionary. As soon as a man tried to object to me, as soon as he asserted his rights or demanded attention for his own interests, I perceived it as a mutiny on the ship. "You're not spending enough time with me," I would scream. "But I'm working so we can go on vacation," he would justify. "I don't care. If you loved me, you would find the time." I pointed them to the door at the slightest conflict. "You can't change me." I threw in their faces, and they left. At first, they tried to get through to me, then they simply packed their bags in silence. And I remained, proud and independent, surrounded by my things and my self-righteousness. I thought I just hadn't met the one who was worthy of me yet, the one who would love me unconditionally, like Dad did, the one who would tolerate my tantrums and kiss my hands just because I exist. I wasn't looking for a husband. I was looking for a parent. But grown men are looking for a wife, a partner, a friend, not a capricious daughter. But dads die, and moms do too. This is a law of life that I was also not prepared for. When my parents were gone, a void formed around me. First, my father passed, and 2 years later, my mother burned out. And suddenly it turned out that the very center of the universe that I was hanging in a black vacuum. I was pushing 40, there were no friends left. Who enjoys being friends with a person who talks only about herself? My monologues always started with I, me, mine. I never sincerely asked, "How are you? How are your kids?" If someone started complaining about their problems, I got bored, interrupted, or devalued their pain. "Oh, come on, listen to what happened to me at work," I would say. And people vanished, quietly, without scandals. They just stopped calling. I completely lacked self-criticism. I believed the world was unfair, that men had become petty and weak, and that the people around me were stupid and envious. I protected my psyche with this armor. They just aren't on my level, I thought, sitting alone on a Friday night in front of the TV. I threw myself into work. I was a difficult person there too, but they tolerated me for my professionalism. My career became my shelter. I bought a nice apartment, paid for expensive renovations. I created the perfect set design for a happy life. But there was no lead actor in this play. The epiphany hit me at 45. Hard. Without warning. I remember that evening in detail. It was November. Rain was lashing against the windows. I had returned from a corporate party where everyone was in couples, where colleagues were showing photos of their children. I smiled, kept my composure, played the role of the successful businesswoman. I walked into my perfectly clean, stylish house. I kicked off my heels, and I realized that the silence was pressing on my ears. It wasn't the peaceful silence of rest. It was the dead silence of a crypt. I suddenly realized clearly, if I fell right now, slipped in the bathroom and died, they would only find me in a week when I didn't show up for work and accounting started looking for me because of some reports. No one would miss me before then. No one would feel sick at heart because I wasn't there. At 45, for the first time, I looked at myself in the mirror without the rose-colored glasses that my parents had put on me and that I had held in place with my own hands for half a life. And I didn't see a queen. I saw a capricious, aging, frightened child. A woman who had no self-discipline, no self-development. I had simply drifted along the current of my desires and instincts like an animal. I want, I take. I don't want, I scream. Then I got scared, truly to the point of cold sweat, and that fear forced me to act. I started reading. I began to greedily devour books. Biographies of great women, success stories, serious psychology, philosophy. I was looking for the answer to one question. What did I do wrong? Why do others, those I considered simpletons, have strong families, respect, warmth, Sunday dinners, and I only have cold pride and designer furniture? And in almost all the books about truly successful and happy people, I found one common word, a word I had hated all my life, a word that made me yawn. I used to think discipline was boring. It was waking up at 6 a.m., calisthenics, and dieting. It was for soldiers and athletes. But the books opened my eyes. Discipline is not about a schedule. Discipline is control over oneself. Discipline is the ability to keep your mouth shut when you want to make a snide remark and humiliate someone. Discipline is the ability to step on the throat of your own I want for the sake of a collective we need. Discipline is, in some places, a prohibition, a strict prohibition on being an egoist. I realized, to be successful in life, not in money, but specifically in life, in relationships with people, you need self-education. And I didn't have it. I was raised to believe everyone owed me, and I was too lazy to raise myself. I was undisciplined, not in terms of morals, but in terms of emotions. Emotional self-indulgence, that was my diagnosis. At 45, I began to break myself. God, how painful it was. It was like learning to walk again after a severe spinal injury. Every step was through I can't. I learned to be silent and listen. I forced myself to ask people questions about themselves. I learned to admit my mistakes. Before, the word sorry physically could not escape my mouth. Now I practiced in front of the mirror. I apologize. I was wrong. I learned to see people as people with their pains and fears, and not as service staff for my ego. And you know, fate gave me a chance. Not a huge fairy tale one, but a chance, perhaps as a reward for my efforts. 3 years after starting this work on myself, when I had changed a little, I met David. He was 50. He was lonely too. He wasn't a millionaire. He wasn't the hero of a romance novel. An ordinary man, an engineer with a messy divorce and baggage of mistakes behind him. He was tired. Before, the old me wouldn't have even looked at him. I would have found a heap of flaws. He doesn't dress right, he doesn't joke right, his car is too simple. I would have started nagging him from the first date, but the new me, who had learned what self-education was, acted differently. I saw his eyes, kind and sad, and I stayed silent where I wanted to be sarcastic. We started talking, carefully, gently. We learned to build a relationship like two wounded soldiers supporting each other to reach the hospital. Now I am 55. We have been together for 7 years. We have a calm, warm life. I know what care is. I know what it's like when someone waits for you at home and warms up dinner if you're late. I finally learned to love someone other than myself. I learned to give, and it turned out that this brings more joy than taking. It seems like a happy ending, right? The heroine understood everything and fixed it? Not quite. Life is not a movie. You can't reshoot the first few episodes. Every mistake has a price. My price is an empty nursery. David and I are alone. We have no children. At 48, when we got together, it was biologically too late. Nature closed that door in front of me. My train had left the station, and it left a long time ago. Those golden years, from 20 to 40, when I could have become a mother, when I had health, strength, and energy, I spent on admiring myself. I spent them on my career, on parties, on buying clothes, and on proving to every man how independent and proud I was. Now I look at women my age. They often complain. They complain about fatigue, about the grandchildren making noise and tearing the apartment apart, about their children needing help with the mortgage. They say, "Oh, I'm so tired, not a minute of peace." And I look at them with white, burning envy. I would give everything I have, my career, my apartment, my designer bags, for their fatigue. They invested in their future by pouring their souls into other people. I invested only in myself, and my capital turned out to be very small. Dust and decay. I am happy with David, yes, but I am a dead-end branch. After me, nothing will remain. No one will remember my mother's recipes. No one will say, "But Grandma Evelyn used to say..." I am telling you this not just as the confession of a lonely woman. I want to raise a topic that perhaps some will not like. I want to talk about parents. My tragedy didn't begin at 45. It began at 5, when for the first time I wasn't told no. Now I see young moms and dads. They love their children so much. They want to give them everything. They protect them from teachers, from peers, from the system. "My child is an individual. Don't you dare break him," they scream. And I see myself in these children, little spoiled tyrants who know no boundaries. I want to appeal to you, parents. Please understand, parents are also to blame for stories like mine. Improper upbringing is a time bomb. Children should not be spoiled too much. This isn't love, it's sabotage. A child from early childhood must know what no means. This is the most important word in parenting. No forms the riverbanks within which the river of personality flows. If there are no banks, the river turns into a swamp. Balance is needed everywhere. To love? Yes, absolutely. Kiss, hug, support? Definitely. But at the same time, demand. At the same time, set boundaries. A child must understand hierarchy. He must understand that he is not the center of the world, that mom and dad also have desires and they are important, that in life not everything will be as he wants. Children need to be prepared for real life, not a fairy tale. The world is cruel. When your child leaves home, the world will not blow dust motes off him. The boss at work will not tolerate his whims. A husband or wife will not play the role of a servant. If you put rose-colored glasses on a child, the glass will shatter inward at the first collision with reality, and it will hurt. My parents wanted the best. They loved me to madness, but they didn't teach me to labor with my soul. They didn't teach me that relationships are about giving, and by doing so, they doomed me to loneliness. Give your children a chance to be happy. Teach them discipline. Teach them to hear others. Teach them that they are part of a society, not gods on Olympus. If I had been taught this in childhood, I wouldn't have had to piece myself back together at 45. I appeal to those who are 20, 30, maybe 35. Do not believe the sweet slogans, "Live how you want, you don't owe anyone anything." This is a trap for fools. To build something worthwhile, a family, a friendship, a reputation, a house where laughter rings out, you need to be able to limit yourself. You need to consider other people's opinions. You need to be able to bend so you don't break. Without self-discipline, without rigid self-education, we turn into savages, into beautiful, well-groomed, but absolutely lonely savages in empty apartments. Don't wait until you hit 45. Don't wait until the silence becomes unbearable. Start working on your character now. Learn to listen. Learn to yield. Learn the word we, not just I. I was able to change. I saved the remainder of my life, but I couldn't turn back time. I couldn't have children. Don't repeat my mistake. Be stricter with yourself today. Be wiser in raising your children, so that tomorrow your life will be full, so that in old age you are surrounded by love, and not just memories of how proud and independent you once were.